Thanks for tuning into today's podcast. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our new remote training here at RPP. We've been offering remote training for quite some time, but we always required the athlete to come in-house for an assessment. Now we can do the whole assessment online and bring all of our services, pitching, hitting, and strength training to your doorstep. So, if you like what we do and how we do it, go to our website at rocklandpeakperformance.com and click on Remote Training in the toolbar. Thanks. The Behind the Scenes Podcast. I'm your host, Nunzio Signore, looking to bring you great dialogue with some of the best in the world of player development. The world of training baseball players has changed dramatically during the past few years, and I'm looking forward to shedding some light here on what's the latest, what's the best, and what's really happening in the world of player development. Thanks for joining me for the ride. Hey guys, my guest today is Walter Beede, a very interesting guy with a baseball career that has spanned over 40 years. Walter brings an extremely diversified background of parents and student athletes. I mean, he's pretty much done it all. He went to Fitchburg High School in Massachusetts, where he was an all-New England first team as a high school player. He received a scholarship from Arizona State University and was selected in the 13th round draft pick in 1981 by the Chicago Cubs. His coaching background is lengthy and extensive. He's been a head coach at the high school, national travel baseball, and NCAA-College level. He's also worked as a task force member for the prestigious Team USA program in Cary, North Carolina. As the father of two sons that competed and graduated at the college level, Walter has been through the recruiting process plenty. One of his sons, Tyler, played for the National Champion Vanderbilt Commodores and is currently with the Pittsburgh Pirates. All told, Walter has more than 15 years of experience as a mentor to other young men, a coach, a father, and a player himself. Walter brings a complete and extremely diversified background to parents and student athletes who are seeking to play beyond the high school level, both through his Twitter feeds, Twitter, Masters of Baseball, and at Baseball Lifer 11. He's got two books that I have sitting here right in front of me. One is Fun Over Fear, and the other is The Process. So, hey, Walter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to that.
This is going to be a great learning experience for me as well, not so much from the recruiting side, but from a business side. I think many times I don't have as much of a grip on the pressures of the process when listening to parents frantically tell me while their son isn't coming in to get stronger and is just continually going to showcase after showcase after showcase. And I think sometimes because I had a daughter who does swim in college, but never was in the recruiting process to play at a higher level, I think that I don't understand those pressures of courting these schools, and I may be a little insensitive to a lot of these parents that come in and are just these type A guys that want to come in and all they want to do is showcase. So this is going to be a little bit of a learning experience for me, and I'm going to let you do the talking. We're going to start off with some player development questions. You raised two ball players, one of which is now a major leaguer. If you were to do it all over again, how would you go about raising ball players in today's environment?
Well, I think what's the big difference is the access to information via social media. In today's world, a lot of parents will spend time, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok even, and so they think they're getting an understanding of the process as a whole, but in reality, they're just reading snippets, and they really don't have an understanding of, okay, once I plant that seed, my son begins to play baseball, say at the youth level of say 8 or 9 years old, they're following a business model, and they're really not following a baseball model. So some of the mistakes that I made as a dad back, in the early 2000s, where I was still a college coach. So sometimes it would be hard for me to take off the college coach hat and become the dad watching a son. And so I was thinking as a coach and not as a dad. So one of the differences in today's landscape is the business model of travel baseball goes year to year, meaning you're going to go from that 10U to 11 to 12 to 13. And I tell parents, and I stress to parents, that's a business model. That's not a developmental model. That's not a baseball development model, because the high school programs that your sons are ultimately going to play at have student athletes that are 15 to 19 years of age. In college, which is what the holy grail that every parent chases, you're going from 18 to now in today's world, 23 and 24-year-olds. So at what point are we going to begin to learn, that the development needs to be, and you need to be competing against the older student athletes? We're making ourselves stronger at 13, 14, and 15, but we're not competing against those older players, kind of getting some correlation between the high school and college, team versus your travel team. So I think parents are falling for a false narrative. There's not enough strength and conditioning. There's not enough strength training. There's too much playing. There's too much pitching and not enough throwing. There's too much hitting and not enough swinging. And we're talking about underdeveloped student athletes, both mentally and physically.
When you say there's too much there's too much throwing and not enough pitching, I agree with that. And I think when you mentioned there's not enough strength training, I think that a lot of parents, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of parents have are under the impression that you throw harder by simply just continuing to throw. And I think that they will at the drop of a hat sacrifice strength training and getting their kid more athletic in exchange for throwing and trying to think that that's going to actually make them throw harder. So with all this early development up to the parent, what advice do you actually have for them?
Well, I think, when I talk to parents and I try to tell them, what is our rabbit that we're chasing? What is our ultimate goal? So you're coming to me, you want your son to play in college. When I was going through this process, I solely wanted my boys to compete against older, more experienced players so that they could see what it looked like, know what it felt like as far as visually seeing a baseball traveling at them at a high rate of speed. They also spent a lot of time watching my college practices, which I feel is an integral part. But, we're taking all these lessons. We're playing these tournaments in the fall. We're playing tournaments in January. I mean, I have parents that come to me that their sons have sore arms. Well, when did he start throwing? Well, his first game was over Martin Luther King weekend. We went down to Florida. What was the point of that? Like, what are you doing? What are you getting out of that? So, a high school, a college, a professional player, they prepare their bodies for at least a minimum of 2 to 3 months prior to their first game, active game. They're doing progression training. And when I talk to people about strength training, I say, you're not going to put your son under a rack of 500 pounds unless he shows you he can do 100 pounds, 200 pounds, so forth and so on. But in baseball, we're chasing velocity, 80 miles an hour, then it's 90 miles an hour, then it's spin rate, and then we go from spin rate to, breaking balls and sliders. And so we're missing developmental periods of time, and we're trying to bypass all that. We're going to take a pocket radar out of our pocket, go to a little league game, and we're going to make sure our son is in that upper percentile. So we're focused so much on results and so much on these goals that are false. They're false in the sense of, just because your son can throw a baseball X amount of miles per hour doesn't mean he can pitch unless he can throw strikes. And just because your son has an exit velo off of a batting tee, if he can't swing a bat in a game and make contact, that exit velo is wasted. So what rabbit are we really chasing as parents? And so I think if we took 2 steps back and said, once our sons are done playing Little League and coming from the small field to the big field, that's the time you need to implement the strength training with development. And if you did that at that 13 to 15-year-old age groups, you're going to be prepared. You're going to be able to compete for a roster spot on a high school team and then subsequently potentially a college roster a few years later.
and you're ingraining good motor patterns in a young child. So at the time when he's 15 and 16 and those growth spurts happen, he doesn't all of a sudden become a bowl of spaghetti, which I see all the time. These kids shoot up and they decide, they decide they're going to start lifting and get stronger at like 16. I'm like, guy, it's like, you know what I mean? Like you had at least 2 or 3 years prior to this to ingrain a good movement pattern, so when we do put heavy weights in your kid's hand, he doesn't crumble, and also those kids, a lot of the guys that I find that come in and aren't really as keyed into their son's athleticism are those naturally developed kids who are throwing hard at a young age. And then what happens every time that I see it is the game catches up with them. And all the kids that started lifting, by the time they're 16, this kid that was throwing heat at 12, okay, now his arm is bothering him because he's always been throwing hard and he doesn't have that muscle to disperse that stress off the mound. And now he's got arm problems. So kudos to you for ingraining the importance of becoming athletic, which, that's all the more reason.
Well, I think a lot of parents start thinking about specializing at far too young an age. And again, nothing that I did as a parent is relative to anybody else's child. And I make sure I tell parents that all the time. There's no blueprint and there's no script, because if there was, somebody'd be selling it one at a time and be a millionaire. But what I try to tell parents is this: what I recognized at a very young age as a father was I had two sons that were total opposites. Both had the athleticism and the gifts, but one had a true passion, and the other one just liked to have fun and really didn't put as much time into his preparation. And so they were both athletic. They played football, they played hockey, they played basketball, they ran track, they played soccer when they were younger. And so their motor skills, and I vividly remember Tyler was much smaller at a younger age, and he could fly. He was a very, very fast runner. He was a football player, a point guard. And all of a sudden, one year, he just hit a growth spurt of like 6 inches, and he went from that 5'9", 5'8" to 6'2", 6'3". But he didn't lose that foot speed because everything that he had been working towards was well-rounded, meaning he was agile, he was quick, he was reactive and explosive, but he started what I call a serious routine of strength training at 14 years old. As soon as he turned 14, he was, I want to get into the weight room. I don't want to just do this stuff with the football team. I don't want to go to Planet Fitness or the local gym. And I owned a 50,000 square foot health club. And that's where we sought out and started a working relationship with Eric.
Great. Awesome. So many dads are also coaches at younger ages. Talk to me a little bit about being a dad versus being a dad coach. The ability to, how did you find the ability to let go, and when could you turn it off and turn it on? Because I know as my daughter got in the swimming pool, she swims competitively in college now, but when she got in the pool during high school, I couldn't help it. Like on the way home, I would become that guy that I tell all the people in my gym not to become. And my wife's looking at me like, dude, you're being a jerk. Like you're being exactly like the people that you talk about all the time. Like your daughter does something good and you tell her that's great, but you know what I mean? So how do you separate that?
Well, this was probably the single biggest mistake that I made as a dad. And I was a single dad. The boys lived with me. And so after a game or after a practice, that's not the time to critique a student athlete or a child. The wonderful thing that I've, come to learn as a dad is that children are very aware of how their game, whether it's a practice or a game, affects their relationship with their parents. Meaning, I let my dad down, I struck out, I gave up a home run, my dad's going to be mad. And so it really did not come to me until Tyler was at the College World Series in 2014, which was far too late in the process with regard to having his amateur career was about to end. But it was an eye-opening experience when, you figure out your child knows. They understand the weight and the responsibility of expectation. Right. So we put them in these environments, and because of video games and social media where everything has a happy ending, I can press a button, hit a home run, I can press a button and get a double or strike this guy out. Doesn't work that way. The ups and downs and the ebbs of flow of sports on a child, they're trying to please mom and dad. They're trying to please friends. They're trying to live up to these expectations. And oftentimes when they don't, they see it as a failure in life, not just as a bad game or a bad moment. Nobody picks the right time to make an error. You're the shortstop, bases are loaded, 2 outs, you win by a run, you commit an error, the team loses, by a run. You didn't want to make the error. Everybody knows that, but yet we're going to continue to harp on it. And now it goes all the way down to youth travel ball. If you read social media, so think of being a child and they have to live with that kid stinks and he stinks, he's overrated. And so as parents, we should step back, recognize this is not life or death. It's a baseball game. It's a sport. And they're going to have another opportunity. It's the next pitch. It's the next at bat. It's the next game. It's the next week. So let them have time. And oh, by the way, that is how we learn.
And oh, by the way, let's have some fun.
Right. But we're learning, and it's a game, And so I had a guy, absolutely, his son was talented, but he wasn't explosive. He wasn't fast. He didn't have a loud tool. He wasn't going to be on anybody's radar. Can you help my son? And so I literally said to him, I will, if you take your phone, your cell phone, and I want you to just, for 1 hour, I just want you to press play. Don't take video, just record the sound of the game. And he found it odd. And I said, after you have that done, call me, I'll come over and we'll talk. I said, but you can't listen to it until I get there. He said, okay. So we got there, he takes his phone out, pulls up the recording. I said, no, I don't want to say a word for the first 15 minutes. He said, okay, press play. He's screaming at the umpire. He's screaming at his son. He's screaming at somebody on the opposing team. And I just said, okay, we don't need to go anymore. I said, if you were your son and you could hear your dad's voice, what would you be thinking after listening to that? He said, wow, I had, no idea I was even saying any of that stuff. I said, but your son hears your voice. Our children can hear our whistle, our voice. We could be in a crowd, 20,000 people at the box and at LSU, your son can hear your voice. So it's really best to simply let them play. Don't evaluate, don't critique, leave that to the coaches. Make sure, are you having fun? Are you healthy? That's all I need to know. If you're having fun and you're healthy, we'll play another game tomorrow. That's the baseball, way of life. You can go 0 for 4 today and 4 for 4 tomorrow and you're hitting 500, but nobody remembers the 0 for 4. So, I think because of social media, the expectation is you have to perform every single day. And it just doesn't happen within the sport of baseball.
And great answer. And also the fact of thing that I do notice a lot about the young kids of today, agree, disagree, like it or not, the advent of social media that we did not have when we were kids, these kids do not handle that kind of pressure that we may have had from our parents. They actually, I can watch kids crumble. Like even when their father walks in to pick them up after a lift in my place, I can see the father come in and I can see the kid cower like a dog sometimes. And I know that this is the type A dad who comes in and tells me that he wants me to kick his son's ass in the weight room. I'm like, sir, if I kick your son's ass right now, he's not going to want to come back here. So and that's That's, I think when you're talking about yelling at the ump and yelling at the kids, and as mortified as that would have made you, I think that that might be tenfold right now because of our kids' ability to handle the stresses that we had to handle. I think that parents should be, that's a great point you made. Parents should be really, really aware of your kids' stress level and do not bulldoze them.
Yeah, I think, the one thing that I always try to tell parents is, we're the same age. And so when we would be kids, we would go to a playground, and if we went to the playground and 30 kids showed up, you could pretty much tell who the top 10 guys were. It wasn't a mystery. And, those were the guys that decided who was playing on what team, who they were going to pick.
Right.
Kids
They were the
know.
captains. They were the captains.
They were the captains, right? And then you showed up, and whatever the sport was, they were the best players, period. In today's world, we have a tough time understanding it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So why are we all worried about how it's all starting? Like, we're all worried within youth baseball. The business, the hamster wheel of youth baseball is all about the fear that they put into parents. Your son will not be ready. He will not be prepared. He won't be able to compete. He won't be able to keep up. And parents keep hearing this. And then they take it out on their sons. You got to do this and you got to do that. They're just starting. They're just starting their life. We're talking about grade school and middle school and high. They're just starting. We don't have to worry about how well they're doing at the start. We need to prepare them for the finish. And I tell parents all the time, if you were in the first grade and you needed to take Spanish, would you have been able to converse in the first grade? Well, I didn't even know how to speak. I didn't know how to read or write. Exactly. So let the kids figure out, who am I as an athlete? What am I good at? What am I not good at?
And do I even like this sport?
Right. Do I want to continue to play and deal with all of this anguish every single day? Because obviously my mom's not happy. My dad's not happy. My dog doesn't come and talk to me. Social media tells me I stink. I didn't make that team. Do I even want to deal with this? In reality, if we just let the kids go figure it out. Yep. I tell any parent when they get involved with travel baseball, I say, let me ask you a question. How were you as a kid? Well, I played piano, and I said, oh, okay. I said, so tell me, what does your son do? Well, he plays baseball. Well, what else? Does he swim? Does he play baseball? The piano, guitar? Is he a drummer? Does he like music? Does he read? Well, he plays a lot of baseball, takes a lot of lessons, and we go around to a lot of camps. And you're answering that you need to let your child simply be a child. Do they like the game? You'd be amazed, and you try this whenever somebody new comes into your studio with regard to, hey, I really want to start weight training for baseball. What's your favorite team? Now, in your area, you hope they say the Phillies or the Pirates or Yankees, the Mets. I would never get those words out of my mouth. But, for me, it was the Red Sox, right? But I could tell you all 25 guys on a Red Sox team from 1970 to today, probably. But my point is, I ask a student athlete now, who's your favorite player? I don't know. Do you watch any baseball? No, I play. I said, when's the last game that you watched on television? I really don't watch a lot of television. I say, do you play video games? Yeah. So you play MLB The Show? Yeah. Who's your favorite player? Well, Mike Trout is the best player. I said, no, who's your favorite player? So my point is, there's no attachment. We're detached. When I sit with college coaches, and I sit and talk with a lot of college coaches, and when I ask them, what is wrong with today's game? Their number one answer is student athletes do not know what it's like or what it takes to be on a team. Now, think about that for a second. They're all on a team, but coaches, and I said, well, that's interesting. What do you mean by that? Well, if they don't get the right opportunity, they move to another team. If they don't like the team that they're on, they switch to the team. And then in travel baseball, if you're a good player on a team that's not so good, the real good team comes and plucks you and says, hey, that team stinks. Come play for us. So they're used to moving every year to a different team.
And I think used to be in Little League. I think a lot of, excuse me, I think a lot of that, I see that being perpetrated by the parents even more than the kid. The parents
Correct.
the parents are more concerned. Well, if my kid gets on the best team, he's going to get
Right.
seen by more people, and they're constantly trying to move their kid, and the kid's just moving around. And you can see the kids who want to play baseball, and you can see the kids that are playing baseball because their fathers want them to. And
Now,
there's
therein lies, if you want to know and you want to take a pen and you want to pin it on a wall and say, here's the number one problem with travel youth baseball, not travel organizations. I got a lot of people that own travel teams that get upset. And I say, I'm not talking about your program. I'm talking about what's the number one problem. It's all about status, meaning not for the student athlete, but for the parents.
yes.
Meaning my son plays for the elite national prospect team, and they sent 500 players to college and major league draft, and he's a part of that team. And now it's so watered down that you can take a national travel team and they have a team in the South, a team in the North, a Florida team, an Ohio team, a California team, but it's got that, that script across the chest, and parents don't mind shelling out all that money because their son is a part of the elite national prospect team. It's a status. It's all about status, and it's not about ability or development. Ask any college coach, and they'll tell you, hey, I can coach student athletes. I can help develop student athletes, but I can't teach them. I have to spend 12 to 24 months teaching them what it's like to be a part of a team, understanding your role, accepting your role, excelling in your role, being a part of a team in your role that helps the team be successful. Not your statistics, not your draft status, but being a part and a whole part of a team. Even if you're the 25th guy on a 25th major league roster, you still, when called upon, have to execute to help your team win.
So let's talk about a couple of those different levels of the game. For my listening audience, let's start at middle school and go right up to the college level and
Sure.
pro. Okay, so let's talk about those different levels of game and what should you be doing and when. Area of focus for a 13 to 15-year-old kid in middle school.
13 to 15-year-old is about strength development, strength training, understanding what it takes to prepare your body to be a high school athlete. And so I get pushback all the time. Too young, body's not ready. When in reality, it's actually a fun and engaging time in a student athlete's life, and they're learning about their body. They're learning how to stretch. They're learning how to add muscle, and why they're adding muscle and how the muscle sequence. So 13 through 15, strength training has to begin. It's probably the weakest time in a student athlete's life.
And what's better for their confidence? What's better for their confidence level than to watch their body change?
And when they see it changing, they begin to see and feel results, not just lifting the weight. I'm talking about how they move, how they are able to do things that they probably weren't capable of doing. I had a parent one time say to me, geez, your son is really fast, but he's so tall. Well, the stronger his lower half became, the faster he became. When you are able to get your legs, I'll say to a parent all the time, and we'll be talking about pitching and all this velocity stuff at 13 to 15. Oh, we want to throw 85. I said, you're thinking about their arm, but in reality, velocity comes from the lower half up through the core, through the spine, through the pectorals, through your chest, and then it exits out the arm, the elbow, the wrist, and the fingers.
And it comes from the ground. So the harder you can dig in, the harder you can put out.
But the only way you can dig in is if you have that size and that strength that allows you to be explosive through your movement patterns. Tom House will always say, move, flip, and fast. You can move fast with strength. And at 13 to 15, we're so consumed with playing 100 games, going to these showcases, going to these camps, when in reality, all you're doing is it's like taking a Corvette and putting a Prius engine in it and saying, yeah, it looks great, but it's not going to go very fast. So
Yeah,
your strength and your skill set development at 13 to 15 is critical mass, because it's at those ages that if you don't have the foundation of strength with or equal to the foundation of skill set, you will not play at the high school level. You just will not play. So if we take numbers, like say the 2.5 to 3.5 million student athletes are playing youth baseball up and through the age of 13. And then at 13, that number gets cut drastically down to almost 500,000 to 600,000. And from that 600,000, high school students are only about 300,000 active high school students playing high school baseball, junior varsity and varsity. So think of the dramatic drop off. And so it's all about who's strong, who's not, who's skilled, and who's not. If you're not strong and you don't have skill, you're out.
And for parents listening to that, that's unbelievable advice, not because I'm a strength and conditioning coach, but I will also tell you that, you have to think about the parent that comes in and doesn't have his son lift weights. He comes in, he wants pitching lessons. I'm like, listen, we have great pitching instructors here. We have mocaps, we have everything available that pro ball has. I said, but we do not just have kids come in and throw. We want you to lift while you throw as well. And the first thing some of the kids' parents will say is, he's never really lifted before, and I really don't want him to get hurt. But he's throwing 10 months a year, right? And I tell them, more kids get hurt throwing 10 months a year than I don't have anybody who gets Tommy John surgery or gets or has elbow impingement or a shoulder impingement from being in the weight room. So they're okay with their kid throwing year round, but they don't want them to get strong because they don't want them to get hurt. And that's a little bit. I'm glad that you're bringing up that point. Which can bring us to the 16 to 18 high school. Now we're moving up to high school area of focus.
So here is where the rubber hits the road. Parents start talking college recruiting. Athletes begin to start thinking about college recruiting, but yet they haven't played a high school game yet. And, that always kind of gets to me a little bit, because we're more worried about the destination than we are about the journey. And so at 16, let's call it 15 to 18, ninth grade through your 12th grade year of high school, you need to understand that you either have to execute to be able to execute and compete at a varsity level first before you start to worry about college baseball. And so we're all worried as parents about rankings, about what summer team we're playing on. And we tend to disregard, and I think to some degree disrespect, the high school baseball model and the high school baseball coach. Well, a high school coach carries a lot of weight with regard to college recruiting. Let's take our 400 to 300,000 student athletes playing at the high school level to play college baseball, regardless of the level, NCAA, NAIA, JUCO, and NJCAA. There's only 35,000 seats available to be had. So less than 10% of high school baseball players are going to play in college. But yet, what's the central focus for every single parent and student athlete that plays travel baseball? It's all about college recruiting. And so at 15 to 18, your first 2 years, accept this. One, you need to accept the fact that your son may be asked to play junior varsity baseball as a freshman or a sophomore. There's no relevance to whether your son is a varsity player as a freshman or not with regard to college recruiting. College coaches don't care about how you start. It's how you're prepared when you enter my campus and step foot onto my campus, and after your senior year in high school. 16, you need to be aware of your social media interactions. You need to be aware of your body, the things you're putting into your body, good, bad, or indifferent, who you're hanging around with. What's your routine? I'll say this to a parent. Hey, can you tell me what your son's routine is? What's a typical week look like? Well, he gets up at about 7. He goes to school about 7:30. He'll come home at about 2:30, 3 o'clock. He has football practice. Then he comes home, he takes a shower, he eats, and then he kind of goes to bed. He's in his bedroom at about 10, 10:30. Okay, well, you're talking to me about strength training. You didn't say anything about his meals. When did he eat? How much did he eat? When did he practice? What is he practicing? Why is he practicing that? What are his strengths? What are his weaknesses? Have they had an evaluation? Well, his travel ball coach says he's really good and he should be able to play at college. Well, have you had an evaluation? I said, let me ask you a question. If I'm selling you a car and you come to look at the car and I'm going to ask $20,000 for the car, I don't know anything about cars. I have to bring a mechanic, and the mechanic will tell me, or I take the car to the mechanic, and the mechanic can say, you know what, it needs an oil change, it needs new tires, it needs this, but at least I know what I need to make this car the best it's capable of being and whether it's worth the money or not. Whereas when I ask parents, well, have you had an evaluation? Well, why do I need one? He's playing for, the elite national prospect team. I don't care about that. Is he fast enough? Is he strong enough? Is he quick enough? Is he versatile enough? What are his eating habits? What are his sleep habits? How much water does he take? What positions does he play? Well, he's a shortstop. Okay, what else does he play? Well, he's just a shortstop. I say, well, that may be good for now. I say, but he may be asked to play center field. Are you working at other positions? And these are the things that parents don't ask as they enter high school. That's the time where you need to take your son to a mechanic and say, okay, tell me, look under the hood. Where is he deficient? Where does he need to, ramp up? Does he need to get stronger? Does he need to get faster? Why does he need to get stronger? And I'll always say to a parent, your son is a shortstop. Is he fast? Well, he's fast enough. Well, do you know that he has to have foot speed, in the upper percentile to play at the level that you want him to play at, or more importantly, he wants to play at? If he's a 7'2" runner, he's not going to play shortstop in college. When do you want to know that? Do you want to know that while he's in high school, or do you want to find that out as he's trying to get into college the senior year? So 16 to 18, that freshman year through senior year, get your son to a mechanic, get him to a major league scout, get him to a college coach, a high school coach, a former player, somebody that can say, this is where he's deficient. If he aspires to truly play at that next level, this is what he needs to work on. And then he needs to go work on his weaknesses and hone his strengths, and that is really about the development portion, of a student athlete that wants to play at the college level.
That's great. And, it seems like with all that you just talked about, there certainly are many places that can do that. They can assess his strength, can assess his speed, can assess his pitching. And I think that sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times I think that these parents are told by travel baseball teams, all you really need to do is get on a good team. I can get your son in front of people. I can get your son in front of people. You know who comes to my games? That's great. That's really great. And you may be right. But my son throws 79 miles an hour. And the answer is not being on your team. The answer is to get him stronger so that when he does get on your team, he's throwing 87 miles an hour.
Right. And I have a young man just going through it right now, literally just spoke on the phone with a travel coach. And I said to him, my recommendation, he is a freshman going into his sophomore year, is that he does not play travel baseball this year. He's like, really? I said, because the parent wanted me to have the conversation with the travel coach. And he said, can I ask you why you said that? I said, okay, he throws 82 miles an hour. He's 6'3" and he weighs 155 pounds. I said, that is an absolute recipe for disaster. I said, now, if he wants to be a pitcher in college, that body needs to A, fill out, B, he has no core strength. He cannot do a push-up. He has not, his scap is as weak as it will ever be. Well, we're going to do a weighted ball program. I said, that's the worst thing we could be doing for this kid right now. I said, he needs to take a year off from baseball. And I said, he needs to be in a weight room. He needs 1,000 to 2,000 calories at breakfast before he goes to school. He needs to make sure his caloric intake. He's like, what does this have to do with baseball? I said, everything. I said, you think this kid is going to be a superstar on your 14-year-old team or 15-year-old team? He does not need that. And I'm telling his parents, he needs to be aware of how his body moves. Now, here's the other thing that ties into this topic. Parent of a pitcher. I go to watch the pitcher, and I said to the parents after I took the video, I said, his levers don't work. Now, this is a topic that never really gets discussed, but is an integral part of all throwing athletes. And he'll say, and the parent said to me, nobody's ever said that to us. I said, well, when you throw, whether it's a football, a baseball, I don't care, anything, a wiffle ball, if your elbow is not leading and your wrist is casting away from your body, you're going to put stresses on that elbow, which for right now at 14 or 15, probably haven't kind of caught up with them yet. I said, but inevitably, when that elbow is not being utilized and it's not kind of leading the charge and your wrist is not really involved, I said, what's going to happen is you're just catapulting. And sooner or later, that catapult just shreds. I said, I don't try to break down. I'm not Nunzio. I'm not Eric Cressy. I said, but if you want to get, more importantly, your son wants to get to the college level, he has to get in a weight room. He has to learn the lower half delivers the load. And he's going to learn how to sequence his body properly because he can. So that's 16 to 18, really the ninth grade through 12th grade, a lot of misinformation. So think about the money trail. In the fall, in the late summer, it begins. The hamster wheel begins to turn. We're trying out in the summer of 2022 for our travel team that will play in the summer of 2023. So we're trying out. And why do they do that? Because they want to get all the contracts signed to collect all the money. Now we play fall baseball. We go to camps, we go to clinics, we go to tournaments, we go to showcases. The wintertime, we practice, we play, we take lesson after lesson after lesson. The spring comes, we're getting ready and prepared for our high school season. Our high school season comes, then our travel season comes. We take 2 weeks off and we go to tryout, and the whole hamster wheel just keeps turning. Have we talked about nutrition? Have we talked about hydration? Have we talked about sleep? Have we talked about strength training? Have we talked about arm care? Not velocity, arm care. And I don't care if you're a pitcher, a catcher, a shortstop, an outfielder. Arm care is for all throwing athletes. Do you do this collectively every single day? Most parents don't, because they're not informed to the level that they should be. They're just trusting somebody that is going to get them because of the narrative is, we've done this with all of these other players, we're going to do it for your son.
Great. That was awesome information. Let's talk a little bit about the recruiting process that people ask me a lot. I think what most parents don't understand is that a college commitment is a one-way commitment. You commit to college, not the other way around. The coach can cut you later. I've seen guys lose their commitment the summer right after graduating high school. List what you see the priorities to evaluate before making a commitment, such as the coach, the college reputation, the program, anything that you feel like what are priorities to evaluate before you make a commitment to a college. I think this is great information for parents to have.
I've been doing this now for almost 40 years. And the one thing that I stress to parents, it's a 40-year decision. It's not a 4-year decision. So let's pump the brakes and let's begin to have an open mind and understand each college serves a different purpose, meaning each NCAA level, each NAIA level, each junior college level. If parents truly understood, first of all, there will be some changes. It's going to go from 11.7 scholarships. Some people are thinking it could be as high as 20, or some schools could give unlimited baseball scholarships, similar to football and basketball. But as it's currently constituted today, it's 11.7 scholarships divided up amongst 27 student athletes. And then you must carry or have roster availability for 8 walk-on student athletes. So a 35-man total roster at the Division I level. Junior colleges can carry upwards of 50 players. So let's think about that for a second. We have about 35,000 total roster spots at college. They all have baseball. The baseball programs are all the same, 90-foot bases, 60-foot 6 inches. Everything is the same. So what is the difference with each college? Okay, academically, what is our destination? What are we looking for? Do we have an idea or an understanding what we would like to be involved with, whether it's engineering, architecture, medical, sciences, math? Okay, now we have to begin to look at those schools that fit. Now, geographically, what's our preference? Where would we like to go and what part of the country? Do we want a major metropolitan city or a more rural, relaxed, smaller campus environment? Okay, now I want to be able to see, once I get that done, I always say to parents, you need to know where the cafeterias are, the libraries are, and more importantly, where the dorms are as they relate to the baseball field. And I get parents that'll look at me like, why are you worried about that? I'll tell you why. Your son gets dropped off on Sunday night by the van after a series, away series, whether it was a 6-hour ride, a 10-hour ride, or a 4-hour flight, what have you. He's got a bag that probably weighs close to about 20 pounds. He's got books. And oh, by the way, he's got to walk from the baseball field to his dorm to go to bed. You want to know that that is within walking distance, or is it a mile and a half away? And he's going to have to get off the bus at 1 a.m, walk over there, a mile and a half home with his bag, got class at 7 or 8 o'clock. Trust me when I tell you the dorm location is important. Well, why does the library matter? Well, your son's going to finish 6 days a week. He's going to come from a baseball field to a study hall. Most colleges in some way, shape, or form have mandatory study hall. Is the library in the general geographical area of the baseball field, or at least his dorm? Where's the cafeteria when he's hungry? All of these things matter. I had a young man had never been to Columbia. He always wanted to go to an Ivy League school, and he's from rural Louisiana. I said, well, I want you to know that Columbia is not only in New York, it's right in the city. I mean, you are literally in downtown. And I don't mind that. That's fine. Shows up on campus and holy cow, Harlem is here and the city is right here. The parents were freaking out. Did you bother to go to see the campus? Do you want to know where the campus is located? So that's before you start to meet the coaching staff. And once you meet the coaching staff, every college coach sounds like a great guy when you talk to him on the phone for the first time. And then you show up for your first day of practice and he's Sergeant Hulka. He's grilling you, he's up your rear end, he's pushing you, he's pulling you, he's reaming you out. Well, geez, this isn't the same guy that asked me about the Celtics the other day or cared about my girlfriend. This guy's screaming at me, called me a baby. You want to know that these coaches are in it to win it. So college recruiting, know where your campus is located, know what your academic area of focus is, know about the strength of their degree. Go watch a few practices, talk to some parents, talk to some student athletes, talk to the coaches. You want to know 3 basic questions when you're talking to a college coach. What was it about my skill sets that you feel will translate into my opportunity when I show up on campus? How do you plan to use me as a student athlete? Where do you envision my opportunities to come from? Whether I'm going to be in a relief role, a starter role, whether I'm going to be a backup utility player or potentially a starting corner position player. What is my role in your eyes? Where will I be able to compete for an opportunity to get between the lines? And then most importantly, you want to know from a coach, where are my weaknesses? Where can you help me develop my skills to be the best player that I'm capable of becoming at 18 through 22 or 23. Now, when I say that to a parent, they'll always ask me, why is a coach going to give me an answer to that? Your college coach, he's going to make you a good baseball player, but the great ones want to make you a better man, future husband, future dad. I want to hear from a coach, how are you going to make my son a better man? How is he going to become more responsible? Is he
That's
going to
great
become a
advice.
part of when he enters a corporate world, he's going to understand how to start at the bottom, work his way up, be a part of an organization, be a part of a team. Is he going to be a teammate as a spouse? Is he going to be able to make decisions as a dad? That's the college experience. We're so focused on how fast his velocity is as a pitcher and how far he can hit a ball. And is he going to play in the major leagues? Well, here's a news flash. 1% of college baseball players will taste becoming a major leaguer.
Yeah, and
2%.
all the more reason to also, while we're thinking about the baseball team of the college that your son's going to, how about thinking about the education that he's going to get, that he's probably going to need more than anything. Which brings me to the point where I think your son got drafted out of high school. Am I correct? And he actually opted to go to school.
Right. So I don't just talk it. As a family, we walked. And that was the most excruciating 3 years of my life. I can only imagine what it was like for Tyler. But he turned down a significant amount of money. I was drafted out of high school. My parents had passed away. I lived on my own starting as a junior in high school. Literally paid rent, bought my own food, worked, everything as a 16-year-old while going to high school. Those days, you were a first-round draft pick, you got $200,000. I got $50,000. I can remember Coach Brock at Arizona State screaming on the other end of the phone, "Son, you just walked away from a college experience." Click. Fast forward 30 years later, there's my son, first-round draft pick, Toronto Blue Jays. Everybody telling him he's got to sign, he's got to sign. He turns to me, "Dad, what should I do?" It's easy for an adult to tell a student at 18, you can go to college at any time in your life. And that's true, but it's not completely accurate. You can only experience college and all that it entails at 18 to 23. When you're 25 and 30 and you have a child, you're trying to go to night school, yeah, you're a college student, but you're not living the college life. And we don't consider those years within the learning. We're so consumed with the destination, we are not focused on the journey. That part of the journey is an integral part of becoming an adult, the 18 to 22-year-old years. And to be perfectly honest with you, that's the rabbit that we should all be chasing. We should be chasing clarity and understanding, a focus on when I get to college, it's my final 4 years of being a part of a team. I'm going to learn from an academic standpoint how to provide not only for myself, but for my future family for as long as I live. And the weight of that is we don't give that any consideration. We only think about how good is the baseball team? Did they go to the World Series last year? How many guys get drafted? Is their coaching staff, do they get guys to the major leagues? It's not the point. You should be saying as a parent, I want to trade my athletic ability for academic excellence.
Right.
And if you do that, you'll be in great shape for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and we're not creating a one-trick pony at that point. If it's always just baseball, practice, throw, baseball. And then, a college comes up and wants to give you some cash to go to a really good school, and you opt to not go to school. I have a very, very good friend who got drafted out of high school, played 6 or 7 years for a Major League Baseball team, went up to AAA, then they released him. And now he's trying to muster up the verve to go back to school at 27 years old. Okay. Now he's trying to muster up the verve to go back to school. And you know what? He's trying every manual labor job he can right now to do it, because he has no college education at 27 years old. So
I just know this. I got drafted. It didn't work out. Bad team, wrong situation. I got some money. I'm not going to ever be considered an educated man. My son can walk into any business at the age of 40 and turn over his resume and say, I went to Lawrence Academy and I went to Vanderbilt University. they're not going to say, oh, you must have been a good baseball player. They're going to say, wow, you must have been a smart guy. My point is that the process needs to be about your individual destination and the journey that it will take to get to that destination. Period. End of story. It's not about becoming a major leaguer. It's not about accolades. It's not about validating through rankings and all of this. It's simply about the journey that leads you to become an adult and ultimately a parent and a spouse.
Amen. Great advice. This is awesome. One last little topic to talk about before we wrap it up. Masters of Baseball. Let's talk about it, your social media project, and tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. Probably about 8 months ago. Now, Butch Bacala has been a major league scout for well over 25 years. He's retired. He scouted Tyler when Tyler was in high school and during the travel baseball process. So Butch and I basically wanted to work together to be able to bring in awareness for parents as to what the realities really are. We have relationships with college coaches, with scouts, with major league executives, major league players, and we wanted to take and provide access to both parents and student athletes so that they would have a better understanding as to the totality of the entire process and not just little snippets that make us look good. Meaning anybody can take a video of a boy that is like 15 and demonstrates above average skill sets and say, wow, he's going to be really good. Okay, what can we do to help him become better? What can we do to help him navigate, the hamster wheel of youth baseball? And more importantly, how can we find and help give him access for the right fit? Meaning, whether it's academically, whether it's socially, meaning an environment that will help him thrive to not only become a better baseball player, but a better student. So because we have the relationships that both Butch and I have, we want to be able to share them. And so, we always talked about gurus versus mentors. And so what we wanted to focus on is it's like an academic environment. So if our curriculum is advanced, we're going to provide, in our opinion, we provide a master's degree to parents and student athletes as far as what the curriculum looks like and what you should be really studying for. In other words, if you have the skill sets and the drive, okay, we can help you with that. If you don't have the drive, you either need to understand how to get that car running again, or it's just not going to work out. And we want to be realistic and honest with people. And that's really the central focus to Masters of Baseball. We have a mental health coach, which is a very big deal in today's world, that works with us. And Brian, who studied under some of the best, Tony Robbins, and a lot of public speakers that deal with the mental mindset.
Yeah.
But Masters of Baseball is essentially a one-stop shop for parents. We've worked with thousands of student athletes and families for the last 35 plus years. And we want to be able to provide that, that understanding and knowledge to the parents and the student athletes in today's landscape.
That's awesome. This has been a great learning experience for me. Talking to somebody who's behind the scenes on the other side of the coin, other than me, gives me great insight to my, like I said before, to my athletes' parents that I deal with on a daily basis, trying to understand those stresses. I hope this is going to help our listeners understand a lot. Walter brings a plethora of knowledge. I love talking to the guy. He's got these 2 books. I don't know if we're going to be on video, but one of them is Fun Over Fear. One is The Process. You can reach him on his social media feed at Masters of Baseball. That's Masters OFBB, and at Baseball Lifer 11. You can reach me at Nunzio Signore on Twitter, and on Twitter and Instagram. My business is at RPP_baseball. Walt, it's been great. Looking forward to maybe we're going to do a part 2 of this one day. So
I would love that. And I will just share one little tidbit before we go. We probably are about 2 weeks away from making an announcement that will be groundbreaking. You know, this isn't like a hype. We're about to unleash a app that is going to connect you with families all across the country. It's going to connect college coaches. Think of it as a combination of the LinkedIn and Twitter, but it's all about baseball. And oh, by the way, the company's been around for 130 years.
Nice.
So 130 years of experience within the sport of baseball. And we're about to kind of charge that engine up a little bit. And we're about to unleash it in about 2 weeks. So we're looking forward to making that announcement probably by mid-June or sooner. But it's going to be a great opportunity for people like yourself to be able to interact with teams, programs, parents, students from all over the country and hopefully all over the world.
And that's really what it's all about. It's all about everybody getting together to create one big product, you know?
Correct. Exactly correct. It takes a village.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Hang on 1 minute. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to pause this and hold up.